The North American model of wildlife conservation is the guiding principle for wildlife management in North America. There are 7 pillars which guide this model, which I'll describe in a separate video. Recently in Michigan, Pillar 6, which is science is the proper tool to discharge wildlife policy, has recently been violated by the Natural Resources Commission, otherwise known as the NRC, who caved to perceived public pressures and closed 3 months of coyote hunting season with no scientific backing. I need to understand better how this would affect hunters and anglers in the state of Michigan, where I grew up. So I talked to the staff at Michigan United Conservation Clubs, MUCC, to clarify the issue. In this 3-part episode, we will learn how this affects not only Michigan, but potentially the rest of the North American continent. Steve Windom is the Director of Development and Membership at MUCC and explains the issue very clearly.
Recently in Michigan, the NRC, or the Natural Resources Commission, which is our governing body over our game species, method of take, and bag limits, which was established through Proposal G in 1996 that allows us to insulate our natural resources from political agendas and social pressures. So the NRC is charged with making sound biological decision-making, and they recently chose to close the year-round coyote hunting season for 3 months from April 15th to July 15th, citing unsubstantiated social pressure and social perception in their decision-making and limiting the access and opportunity for Michigan hunters to get out in the field and harvest coyotes and manage populations during that time frame. What this is we believe is the first step down a slippery slope to start managing our natural resources based on nothing more than how people feel about them and emotional decisions, and not based on biological management. We are seeing the erosion of our rights through social pressure, and that biology is seemingly being thrown to the winds and not used as the management tool and the way that we are going to manage our species. We have to all pay attention, and whether you're a deer guy or whatever else you do, this does affect you, because this is the start down the slippery slope to end up like a Colorado or a California where they've outlawed trapping. They're actively trying to take away all opportunity for outdoors men and women, and we're not going to let that happen here in Michigan. So if you truly care about wildlife, if you want to view that wildlife, if you want healthy ecosystems, you have to manage the things that are destroying or degrading that. There's a carrying capacity to everything. So if there's too many of one thing, it puts the system out of balance. And it starts to degrade not only the herd, the populations, but the overall ecosystem that we love to depend on. And coyotes continue to flourish. They're in all 82 counties of Michigan. And if we stop for 3 months and give them a break for 3 months, I don't see how we can rationalize the fact that they won't grow or they won't overpopulate when during a year-round season, we still have had no population level effect. We've just been able to manage them locally, but as a species, they are thriving, and we need to make sure that it doesn't affect the other things that we've put value on, our turkeys, our woodcock, our grouse. We know that raccoons and mesopredators are a huge population issue for those ground nesting birds, for fawns, for other species, and we have to manage those too, but people just don't want to think of it that way. We have to understand that there are groups out there that don't want you to do anything. They want wildlife to be looked at, never harvested, never enjoyed, never eaten. They want things to just be in some Disneyland world where things are not managed. And so if you're only considering that, well, I don't care about coyotes, then you surely don't care about your own pastime to the degree that you believe. This is disheartening for us because there are some hunting groups that support this closure because they fear something down the road. We're not even clear what they fear, but it was said that there is a fear of loss of management tools later, so we should stop doing this now. In 2016, when we opened the year-round coyote season, all sportsmen and all sportswomen were in favor of this because it gave more opportunity. It allowed us to better control the population. Ever since then, we actually have had no population impact. So closing the season for 3 months to us would only allow the species to grow more instead of managing it. Now, springtime is the best time to manage localized populations, But for us at MUCC, this is the first step. Whether you're a hound hunter for bears, whether you're a trapper, whether you're an angler, at some point, the anti-hunting groups are going to come for the thing that you love most. And MUCC is going to be there to defend that as well. So it doesn't matter if you hunt coyotes or not. You need to understand the implications this plays for your favorite pastime, because at some point, if someone believes that bears are too cute to hunt in the state of Michigan, we're going to stand up and fight back with that. If people believe it's too mean to run game with the hounds, we're going to fight back for that. If people think that you are not allowed to trap because they don't like the idea of trapping animals, we're going to fight for that too. So MUCC has always been there, and we're one of the oldest organizations in the nation. So for 87 years, we have fought for our rights, and we will continue to fight for everyone else's rights, even if they disagree with us on this particular issue. We're going to be there to defend the North American wildlife conservation model, and we're also going to be there to empower the NRC to continue making decisions based on biology and not social pressure. And again, we have such an awesome conservation story here because we have brought species back that were extirpated from the landscape. Our turkeys are awesome here in Michigan when at one point they weren't around. Turkeys play a vital role in the ecosystem that they live. And if we don't manage the predators and turkeys go away, we get things out of balance. And then your favorite walking path, your favorite lake starts to be degraded because of the excess populations or the lack of populations. If the NRC made a decision to close a season for a species that was in peril, we would support that decision if the science and the biology supported it as well. This isn't about free reign of everything and kill everything. This is about management. If turkey numbers were starting to decline and we needed to limit the season, and the biology and the science showed us that this will help the turkeys come back, we would support the NRC in that decision. We would support the DNR biologists to say, hey, we need to make some changes now for the long-term health of a species so that my 3 children can enjoy that species when they're adults as well. This isn't us just not wanting the closure of a season. And so we want the NRC, again, to be back to their initial legal charge, their initial doctrine to say, hey, we are managing on the best available science and not just social and political pressures. I just think it's important to understand that you have to stand up and use your voice. And it's important to remain polite while you do that. This might be a hot button issue for some people, but for others, they really don't care. But we all have to come together on this, as I've already said. We have to reach out with respect and be polite and state our case, tell the stories of what we grew up doing and how hunting, angling, trapping, shooting, recreating in Michigan has fulfilled us as outdoor men and women. We don't need to scream into the void and call names and make things personal attacks. The NRC and the DNR and these governing bodies will listen when you add value to your story as a Michigander. We are here to make sure our voice is heard, and MUCC is carrying that voice to every corner of the state. But we need you to also speak up and take action. We have very easy ways to let your voice be heard. If you don't want to make those calls yourself, if you don't want to set up those meetings or send those emails, join MUCC. For $35 a year, you can ensure that your right to hunt, fish, trap, and shoot is protected in perpetuity. We will be your voice if you do not want to use your voice, but we urge everyone to use their voice in a concise, meaningful, and respectful way so that they can understand who this affects and what it does to our outdoor heritage, and that we will not let this slide down the slippery slope of moving into social and emotional governance instead of sound biological science.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. If you would like to get involved, head over to mucc.org and support them in this fight to preserve the North American model of wildlife conservation.